Okay, so please keep in mind that efficient code is a must, right? So using a ternary instead of any if else, letting methods do the math instead of yourself, and then trying to convert into string, more work. So what we did before we left for break, I gave you this statement of how you could put an AM and PM with it, and we have a better solution actually. No math has to be done, nothing, right? So the start time can be formatted. There's a format method in the local time class. You can use a date time formatter class, which is again available, right? So there it is. It belongs to the java.time.format package. So you have to import it before you can use it. And Eclipse is doing it itself, and so does IntelliJ. And you give the pattern how you want your date to be formatted. So the H stands for hours. You could have said HH if you wanted 2 digits. So single digit will have 0 in front of it, and the double will be double. This way it's taking care of both. I've double checked. So the single digit comes as a single digit, and the double automatically as double. So we are saying whatever works. So one H to say show me the hour. You can format it whatever you like. I put a colon in between just so that it looks neater. And then I say MM because we always want minutes in 2 digits. Even if it is a 0, I would like to say 0001. We always like to see our minutes in 2 digits. And then the A stands for AM or PM. It will automatically do it. Right? So definitely much easier even than what I did. So this is what he had. And I think definitely, as I said, I find it's more straightforward. The only thing you have to do is you have to kind of look it up. So for the date time formatter, there were formats that are already available. You can choose one of these, or you can create your own. And in creating your own, the meanings are right here. What can you use are right here. So you can use any other character, I'm sure, like I used a delimiter. I just used the colon. You can use whatever. And of course, I tested it. In the tester class, I created a local time now, which was already there, but I created something with 23 also for 11 o'clock, just to see if the 2 hours were coming properly, and ran it. And notice it worked. Right? The now is still coming as it is because this is what I had used. So without doing any math at all, by using a pattern, which is perfectly fine, right? Remember, we have regular expressions and all that for data input validations, and patterns are how you want your output to be. So I've put that again on Blackboard for you guys, and so that you just have it. I'm not sure for the end time. I didn't think that maybe there was a better way of where we are comparing it, but because there we are just comparing 2 dates. So that change is also on Blackboard now. So I've placed both of them, whatever makes sense to you. But the less and efficient code you write, the better it is, definitely. Remember, it will take less time. It is less on your mind also. As a programmer, you're taking advantage of whatever is already available. Okay? So that takes care of student and lab classes. The tester has still to be coded. So I thought we would be able to code the tester today and finish it off, but seems like we don't have time, but that's okay. But what I want to do in the tester with you guys are a few things. I would like to show you how to create a time and then pass it on as a parameter to your lab class, for example. So when you create a time, a local time object in the main method, that's what you said will be passed. It will throw exceptions if you try to give it a value which is not in the range of 0 to 23. So definitely it is your job to catch that exception. So I'll show you these tidbits so that you can see them. And then maybe I'll create the tester for you next week, and we can just discuss it. Okay. Or maybe creating the tester will be your second assignment. Let me think about it. Like a full-fledged tester, like I expect of you. Okay. Okay, so here are a few things. So all this was just showing you how the output was coming, and then we kind of tested a few things. So let me show you something else also. So I'm trying, just because we don't have much time, I'll just show you a few things that I wanted to. And we have seen something like the pattern of also, and we've seen how to minus hours, and all those things kind of automatically came out of the class. Now, if I want to create a local time variable with a certain hour and the certain time, this is how I do it. So definitely declare a local time variable. I'm just calling it T for now. I'm sure that, no, looks like time is not a reserved word. I thought maybe because time is used so much, maybe it is, right? Okay, so I'm creating a local time and I'm calling it time. We've also seen the now function now. So definitely, if you would like to work with the present time or your system clock or whatever, or take it from another clock, if you notice there is another, you have an option of using the now function, and you also have an option of creating it another way by using a time zone. There are a few ways you can create a date, but in our application, so here you can create it using the current time from the system clock, or you can obtain the current time from the specified clock. And if you go on the clock class, you will find more information there. But for us, this necessarily will not work, because we are saying that we have to set the lab time to a certain time, like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, or 2 o'clock, for example, today's class, or Wednesday I see you at 8. So I mean, we just have to give an hour, and a minute is what we have to give. So we'll do that, but here there are other ways of doing it. I'm just choosing this method of int hour and int minute is what I'm using. I'm using the off method. Okay, so if you click on the off method, it says an hour and a minute have to be provided, and it will create a local time object for you. The hour of the day has to be from 0 to 23, and the minute from 0 to 59. Please notice it says it throws a date time exception if the value of any field is out of range. What are exceptions? Hopefully you've heard about them in your first semester. Exceptions you can have, there are exceptions, it's a big class, of course, in Java, and exceptions have been divided into various groups, right? And these, again, classes, as we call them, classes in Java. When I say groups, I mean classes. So there are arithmetic exceptions, out of index for array exceptions, division by zero exception, null pointer exception. For an object that is null, you're trying to do something like add, dot add. Suppose I'm trying to add to an array list and it's not defined. So here is the date time exception, belongs to the java.time package, right? And it is a runtime exception. And it belongs further to the exception, to the throwable, and then back to object. So here is the hierarchy. Now there are some exceptions that the system can handle for you. And there are some exceptions that it says, all I'll do is I'll give you this, and here are the errors, and you have to do it. So there are, when I talk more about exceptions, I'll talk more about what kind of exceptions need to be handled and what you can ignore. And if you ignore means simply means the system will handle it for you. Okay. And the way of handling it is simply giving you error messages in all that red color on the screen. So that's its handling, whatever it is. Handling means at least it's telling you what's going on. So we'll talk about it. But right now, as you see, this particular method is throwing a date time exception. So let's see, what is this date time exception? How can we kind of handle it? Because remember, this is all your job. From writing classes to writing applications, this is all your job. So when you create an application, you are still writing the tester, as I call it, the tester. You're still writing the application yourself. So I'll show you how to do it. And as I said, we'll kind of maybe use it in another class. Okay, so how do you do it? We just learned that there is a local time method called off. And notice it kind of comes here. It says, give me an hour and a minute. So I'll start with something that is okay, like this hour. But the hour has to be provided in again, 24-hour format, right? It has to be. So that's a kind of a restriction. We humans don't work very well with 24 hours, but that's how it does it. Okay, so let's take an hour. So we are at 4 o'clock. So 12 and 4 is 16. And they're 40 minutes. Right? And just so that we can see its string representation, I'm going to do, that's the easiest way of doing it right now. We see that we can format it or whatever, we've learned that. Why don't we do it? It was not that tough, right? What was it? See how quickly I kind of removed it. System.out.println, because I'm thinking something else and writing something else here. Okay. We just learned that method. So let's format it. So the method was called time.format. There it is, date formatter, date time formatter. And off pattern, was it, or pattern of something? Off pattern. Thank you. And then the pattern was, in quotes, we said H, MM, and then we said an A. I mean, that's not so tough to remember because H stands for hour, minutes for minutes, and the A is not so obvious, but whatever it is, right? Am I missing one bracket still? No, I'm thinking, okay. So this will just print it out in the format we want. So let's see. This is okay. Everything looks okay. 1640 is a valid time. It should just print it out. So there it is, 4:40 p.m. You can't get neater than that, right? Okay, now let's try to do something. So this is fine. If you set right times, you're okay. But now suppose we are taking the time, there is an input, right? We are in a dialog box maybe, or whatever. We are saying, please enter the time in this format, or what is the hour in 24-hour clock. I mean, you're asking for input. So mistakes can be made. So suppose you are you are setting it with 26:40. Excuse me, right? So 26 is not a valid hour. It's not. It has to go from 0 to 23. Excuse me. This is what you get. This is what you get. Notice it says invalid value of hour of day. The valid values are 0 to 23, and you've given 26. And this is actually, just for information, this is your stack of, so it says I found an error here, so I had to go back here and here and here, and this is where I ultimately found the error. So the error, the exception that you got, so you started with your tester at line number 14, right? And it kind of went back to this and said, oh, here is where the exception is. So you always see an error stack here. You can actually print this error stack. There is a method, I forget now, of the exception class, e dot some print stack, like I don't remember the method name, but you can print these errors when you're programming. You would like to know what errors are occurring, so you can do that too. But this is what you will get. So this is how it is handling it. It says here is a problem. The better part of it is, at least it is handling it in the sense that you cannot give invalid values. The valid values are 0 to 23, and for minutes they are 0 to 59. So either way, I mean, the error, even if this value is incorrect, even if this value is incorrect, you will have the same error. You will still get the same error at the same line, right? You will still have the same error in the same line saying there is an error. And it found 26 first, so that's what it is telling you. It didn't even go to the other parameter yet. It found the error right on the first parameter. So now, at least we don't have to do this checking that is the value between 0 and 23 is the value. We've saved that. The only thing we now have to do is maybe handle this exception, right? If we can handle it, and instead of these red lines that you see, instead of showing the errors like this, we tell the user in a dialog box or something, we say the hour provided value is incorrect, something or to that effect, that definitely will have a better impression. So when you handle the exception, so here you're not handling it, the main method is not handling it, so it's just thrown to the runtime unit, and this is how it handles it. Now if you would like to handle it, this is all you will say. You will put the code that is causing the exception in a try block, right? Did you use exceptions in the first semester? Okay, lot of it.
No, we use try catch.
You use try catch. Okay, so let me explain. This is what you're doing. Kind of think of it like this. You are trying to do something, and when you try to do something, the methods that you are using in that try block are throwing exceptions. And now if you would like to do something of that exceptions, create a catch block for it. Right? So that's try catch. You can have any number of catches with the try. Why? Because there could be many methods that you're using in your try block. You usually kind of nest try catches so that you exactly know what exceptions can occur. So every time, now this is another new thing you have to learn. Every time you use any method of a class in Java, always read what kind of exception it throws. And it is your job as a programmer to catch those exceptions. So you can have as many catch blocks as you like. So suppose a method throws 4 different type of exceptions. You will have 4 catch blocks if you want a different message for each one of them. If you say catch any kind of exception and give a common message, that also works. But if you would like to create as many blocks as you like, the only thing you have to remember is you start from the generic one comes at the end, because that's how the rule is. If you put the generic one at the beginning, then it won't even check the other ones. So when I say generic, I mean you have to look at the inheritance of that exception that you're trying to catch. Which class does it belong to? Is it a child of another class, which is further a child of another class, and so on. And of course, at the head of all exceptions sits the class called exception. The class is called exception. So if you just want to say exception and get away with it, that's fine too. That's fine too. But this way it is catching any kind of exception will be caught. And you will have one error message, for example. But if you are writing a good code, if you're trying to say, oh, something is wrong in this, something is wrong, you're trying to catch different kind of exceptions, all you have to do is write multiple catch blocks with a try. And the sequence is important. The sequence is the generic one comes at the end. So it's kind of nesting. So the most nested one comes first, and then the next, and so on. You just have to see who is up in the hierarchy. That's all. So in this one, we know we are catching the date time exception. So if you want to basically, even this will work. Only exception will work also, because that was the only one it was throwing. But I know it is throwing the date time exception. I can write the full name also if I like. That was the only one this off method is throwing. If it had more, then I would have kind of, I mean, you can even write exception in works. There is only the one it is throwing, so you can even give the full name. And in the catch block, you say, what do you want to do? There it is. That's the try catch block. Now, if you were asking the user, please input the time, please input the time, I would put this try catch block in a while loop. And I would use a Boolean variable. And if everything goes okay, here I'll make that Boolean variable true, job done. And otherwise, I'll begin with false. So it will keep asking the time from the user till the user inputs the right time. Here I'm using hard-coded data. I'm using 26400. Like I'm using hard-coded data. If you're using hard-coded data, then of course the data never changes. So it makes no sense putting it in a while loop. But if you were asking a user, so you will say while not done, something like while not done. Ask the user. If it is correct, everything will be okay. It will complete the try block. It will never go into the catch. It only jumps to the catch block if it finds an error, and straight where it finds it. So if it finds it at line number 1 and there is an error, it will come to the corresponding catch block. I mean, if there are more than one. If this statement is okay and this statement is okay, and at the end, you reach the end of the try, of course, the catch block is totally ignored and it will come out of the try catch block. There is another block also that sits with try catch. It is actually the finally block. The finally block in Java says, okay, you've tried to do this, you have a problem, this is what will happen, but finally will always happen, always, irrespective of whether there was an error or exception or whether there was not an exception. And sometimes in the finally blocks, we, for example, if we have opened any files, we will close them. Things like those are done in finally. That has always to be done. So the finally block is always done. So for example, suppose in this one, I want to put a message on the screen, system.out.println. Error in, now I don't know where it can occur because it's the same, they're not two methods, it is a method. It could come in the hour, it could come in the minute. I can say error in hour or minute input, something like this. And the something like this, here a message will come and the program will terminate gracefully. It's called terminating gracefully, right? So if you see, if a user sees something like this on a screen, I mean, of course, he or she is lost. He's just a user. They don't even know what it means. But if he or she sees something like this, it makes more sense, right? So this is called graceful termination of a program. We've just made it more graceful. So now if it was in a loop, it will keep asking, right? And that's how you basically create your applications. Try to think of it, even in applications that you do online or whatever, if there is an error, it will come up with a message, error in the following fields or something, and usually there will be a star or something just to tell you where the error is, right? So now when you write the tester, we will have to kind of keep these things in mind also. We won't just write them flat. Of course, if we give correct values, we are okay. But if we want to kind of take care of try catch, and now I'm going to incorporate try catch also in my example. So one step at a time. So why not, right? So try catches are usually written in the application, not in the classes. If in a class, a particular method is throwing an exception, it only will say, here, I'm throwing the exception. It's not my job. You gave me something wrong, here, take the exception. It is usually the application that handles the exception, because this is the one that is running. It has the main method in it. So we will learn how to catch them, maybe something small like this. And then we will also, when the time comes, we will also start putting it in the class, but the class never handles it. Class will never say system out println or nothing. Remember, no printing in classes. So we'll learn how to do that in class also, maybe in the next example. So let me see if I can complete the tester here for you, or maybe let you guys do the tester. But there are not many methods to be tested. Like usually there are sets and gets. We only have 3 or 4 methods. So I don't know. Either I get it ready and we can discuss it in class, or I can give you it as an assignment. Let me think about it and I'll post it on Blackboard. So you will get the lab class and the student class from me, and you will be asked to write a tester as we have been doing in class from you. Okay, that will be your job. So you will test each and every method with proper, like I have done the 2 testers with you in class. And I won't tell you what has to be done. You will do it. Each and every method to be tested with proper messages on the screen. Right? I'm not expecting you to do try catch, but you know what? All you have to do is put your code in try catch. That's all you have to do. If you kind of make a big try and catches with it, your job is done. None of your methods in your class are throwing exceptions. None of them are throwing. So all you have to handle basically is this one, if you kind of think about it. Right? So you can ask the instructor name, let me see how much weightage I want to give. You could be hard coding it, or you could be asking the user using a dialog box. Okay? So that takes care of what we had to do today. All this is already on, leaving the tester, I think, already on Blackboard. So I'll kind of replace the tester and we'll go from there.